Welcome to the Guild Tremor video strategy guides. I'm Danton, one of our main tanks, and today I'll be explaining the Professor Putricide encounter within the Icecrown Citadel. Professor Putricide is the final boss of the Plague Wing of Icecrown Citadel. He has just over 9.7 million hit points, numerous abilities, and 3 phases. To unlock the door to fight him, you'll need to face and kill both Rotface and Festergut first. If you haven't picked up by now, this video is from the perspective of a tank assigned to be the Abomination. Piloting the Abomination is a necessary role to fill, otherwise the raid will be overrun by slime pools placed on the ground, as well as spawning adds. The Abomination has 3 abilities to use. First is Eat Ooze, which can only be used while standing over a slime pool. Mashing this ability causes the slime pool to dwindle in size as the Abomination's energy bar fills up. The second ability is called Regurgitate Ooze, and slows its target by 50% and deals damage over time to them. This ability is only able to be used on the Professor's adds that spawn. The third ability is called Mutated Slash and deals damage and applies a Sunder effect to the target in melee range. For the pilot of the Abomination, it is ridiculously important to prioritize things in the following order of most important to least important. 1. Use Regurgitate Ooze on the adds that spawn. 2. Eat the slime pools. 3. DPS the adds that spawn. And 4. DPS Professor Putricide. Follow the order of this and you'll have no problem whatsoever. As for Professor Putricide himself, you'll need 1 tank for the first 2 phases. During the first phase, we found it easiest to tank him under the green ooze tank. This is due in large part to maximizing our DPS. The first phase is more about ad control than DPSing the boss though, so be aware of that. Throughout phase 1, Putricide will toss out 2 slime bottles at a time at random players, giving the Abomination driver the chance to eat the ooze on the ground. Please don't stand in the ooze, it hurts. The first ad that will spawn is under the green tank. This ad is called Volatile Ooze, which will root a random player in place and travel toward them. It will explode and knock back players when it reaches them, dealing a massive amount of damage split between all raid members in range. As soon as the ooze spawns, the Abomination driver should use Regurgitate Ooze ability on it, and all DPS should switch to it in an attempt to destroy it before it reaches the rooted player. Once this is accomplished, all DPS should switch back to Putricide. A second type of ooze will spawn shortly afterward, called Gas Cloud. This ooze will again pick a random target, but this time places a massive debuff on them which ticks down over time. The targeted player will need to kite the ooze around, as touching the gas cloud will cause massive damage to everyone in the raid regardless of distance, based on how many stacks of the debuff remain on the target. When this ooze spawns, the Abomination driver will again need to use Regurgitate Ooze, and all DPS will need to switch over to the gas cloud. Once this ad is down, all DPS should once again switch to Putricide. At 80% health, Putricide will freeze the raid in place along with any slime pools left and any adds up and run to his table of potions. This stun effect will also reduce damage taken by 99% until Phase 2 begins. Phase 2 starts shortly after the stun and is identical to Phase 1 save for 2 new abilities. The 2 new abilities are called Choking Gas Bomb and Malleable Goo. The Choking Gas Bomb is placed at Putricide's feet every so often, forcing the tanks and melee to move or die. These potions are orange and easy to see, and give a generous 20 seconds to move away from them. Standing on them will deal damage over time, and will deal around 15,000 damage after 20 seconds. The one ability to really be on the lookout for is Malleable Goo. A single green goo will be tossed toward a random ranged class and bounce over to them. If the goo hits them, they will suffer about 15,000 damage and will suffer a debuff, which slows attack and casting speed by 200%. If that's not an incentive to move out of the way, I don't know what really is. This phase continues until 35% health, at which Phase 3 begins. The same stun effect will happen at this time and will freeze players, adds, and slime pools for the duration. It will also reduce damage again by 99%. At the beginning of Phase 3, adds will no longer spawn, and the Abomination driver will be forced out of the Abomination and hopefully back into the tanking role. Slime pools will continue to be placed on the ground and expand until there is no room to stand. Any adds that are alive at the beginning of Phase 3 will remain alive until killed. Phase 3 is a DPS race. Professor Putricide will continue to place choking gas bombs on the ground and toss Malleable Goo at random raid members, in addition to the slime pools. He will also do a new ability called Mutated Plague to the tanks, which places a debuff on them and deals incrementally more damage to the raid. The entire raid, that is, based on how many stacks the debuff are up. Our raid has 1 tank on Putricide until he receives 2 stacks of this debuff. At this time, the off-tank taunts and tanks it until he gets 2 stacks of this debuff. The main tank will then taunt back until he has 4 stacks, and then the off-tank with 4 stacks, and so on and so forth. Hopefully, by the time the second tank reaches 4 stacks of the debuff, Putricide will be dead. As always, thanks for watching our videos. If you have any questions, I encourage you to post them on the YouTube comment section below, or feel free to visit our website forums at www.feelthetremor.com.